Okay, here we go. Chapter 7. Ew, what was that smell? Oh, of course. Evan and his friends had been smoking and drinking all night, discussing what they could do to overthrow white privilege and oppression, and someone must have thrown up. She touched her hair and frowned. Had she even showered? The week had been hazy. She remembered that the latest hookup wanted no condom, and she had almost said yes. Probably the next time she wouldn't be such a stuck-up bitch, right? The voices in her head were getting louder and louder. Who do you think you are? Freak? Ugly? You're just another random queer. If you died, no one would care. She looked at the contents of her purse spread out on the coffee table. From time to time, Evan or Skylar or someone else rifled through her stuff. But when Katrina asked them to stop, they told her she was being paranoid. In the end, she was always the one to apologize. Katrina reached under the sofa for her violin. She frowned. She checked. She checked again. Her violin was gone. Where's my violin? Evan shrugged. Where is it? Katrina launched herself at Evan, but he pushed her away. Her head hit the wall hard. Evan rushed forward, but Katrina ducked, spun around him, and pulled his head back by his hair. She noticed that Evan was a lot weaker than her father. Where is my violin? Just then, Skylar and Jewel walked in. That pawn shop wasn't like on TV at all, and the guy wasn't even funny, Jewel said. Skylar rolled her eyes. I know, right? You were so wrong, Evan. That violin was barely worth. Where is my violin? Katrina interrupted. What the fuck? Let him go. But Katrina did not listen. She pulled Evan's head back further. I'll fucking kill you. Do you hear me? I will fucking kill you. Skylar! Skylar handed Katrina a receipt. Katrina released Evan, pushed her away, and raised his fists. Don't even try it, Katrina said softly. While keeping one eye on Evan, Katrina grabbed her belongings, backed out the door, and stumbled away. Fuck you, you crazy bitch, Evan shouted. As Katrina left, the neighbors stared at her like she was garbage, which she was. So, you're a space alien. Citizen of the Galactic Empire would be more accurate. And you escaped here to make donuts? Lan nodded. I needed to get my family far from the Empire, but I needed a way to do it without raising suspicion. And that would be donuts. Lan shook her head. Well, not just donuts. At this moment, 247 light years away, a level 5 gamma ray burst is on a direct collision course with this solar system. Level 5. Is that good? Beyond good, Lan gushed. Less than 1% of gamma ray bursts are level 5. When it arrives, every planet, every moon, every asteroid it hits will be bombarded for about 4 minutes. Not just with gamma rays, but all sorts of high-energy radiation. If we're lucky, even your sun might be affected. Gamma rays? High-energy radiation? Did she just hear that right? Not that a space alien like Lan had any obligation to care for life on this planet, but still. Lan, why move your family into certain death? Oh no! You see, at the time, this planet will be shielded, directly behind your sun. Due to a remarkable alignment, your planet will be the perfect location to watch the spectacle. That's why I suggested to the bank that building a Stargate would be great for sightseers and travelers. And you could serve them donuts. Yes, Lan said excitedly. That's how I was able to get a travel permit. I made it look like an excellent business opportunity. And that explains why your accent keeps coming and going. Lan frowned. She had let her donut accent slip. Not good. This was still a customer. Oh, I can change now if you like. Shizuka put her hand up and shook her head. No, please don't. Shizuka listened to the jingle of a passing ice cream truck. It was not every day that Shizuka felt fortunate to have been damned by hell. But it did keep her from getting too shocked by life's surprises. Space aliens at a donut shop? Why not? In fact, it was refreshing to meet someone else with secrets for a change. So, what do you look like, really? Shizuka asked. Lan looked away. When making first contact, it always came to this, didn't it? Scary, she finally said. Really? Yes, really scary. Lan turned her gaze back to Shizuka. Does it matter? Shizuka shrugged. To be honest, I suppose by now I'd be pretty scary too. What do you mean? The sun was just beginning to drop in the sky, and the golden glow made Shizuka recall Technicolor, the Brady Bunch, and ABC after-school specials. I used to be a musician. Lan listened as Shizuka talked about a deal with a demon and a soul in exchange for souls. She listened as Shizuka spoke about a music she could barely articulate, a music that had eluded her for years. Shizuka talked about how she had finally found it that afternoon on this very bench in a girl with a cheap violin, a tuning fork, a battered copy of Schreidick, and a huge bruise on her face. And how she'd been coming here as often as she could, feeding the ducks, hoping for that girl to return. Lan tried to understand what Shizuka said. Some civilizations still might symbolically pledge to a family, a government, even an idea. The entire Tarn Republic declared itself a servant of peace in one of its final communications. But Lan's civilization had long evolved beyond believing in supernatural beings and souls and music. And in her reality, no one would think to attach such importance to or such meaning to music. Still, as Lan listened to Shizuka's voice, it was as if her words had a faint and peculiar pull, giving Lan the tiniest desire to enter Shizuka's reality as well. Shizuka shivered. She realized that she had told Donut Lady far more than she intended. We said too much, didn't we? She said. Lan nodded. I could wipe your memory, Lan offered. Of course, I'd wipe mine out too, just for this afternoon. That would be awkward, and besides, I want to remember this. They finished tossing in the last few donuts, stood up and brushed off the crumbs and frosting. Plum-colored, Lan said softly. What? Our true forms, Lan said. We are plum-colored. Plum-colored. Yes, and our hair can be any color from orange to green, though some of us have blue, mostly from the southern quadrant. My original hair is green. I see. And we have 2 elbow joints. They would be here and here. What about your knees? They are the same. Our patellar ligaments are more robust, however. Actually, all our ligaments are. I see. And what else? What else? You're not horrified? Shizuka tried not to smile. I'll manage. Yours must be a very open-minded species, Lan said admiringly. Whatever Shizuka intended to say next would have to wait. A girl was running to them in tears. Eventually, Shizuka and Lan pieced together what had happened. We should call your authorities, Lan asked. Shizuka shook her head. The police would only make this worse. But we need to visit that pawn shop. Lan nodded. She pulled out her phone to message Shirley that she'd be late. Shizuka turned to the girl. What's your name? Katrina Nguyen. Okay, Katrina Nguyen. Let's get your violin. Pawn shops and musicians have a long history. Within so many pawn shops lay dreams lost, broken, never realized. Usually a musician of Shizuka's stature would have nothing to do with these places. But Shizuka had never been overly concerned with the usual. As Shizuka pulled up to the shop, Katrina pointed at the front window. That's mine, she cried. Please get it back. I don't have the money, but I'll pay you back a little at a time, I swear. Don't worry, Shizuka said. Everything will be fine. No doubt that was the same violin Shizuka had seen the day in El Molino Park. But while that instrument had been in perfect condition, this one had its E and A strings missing, as well as its tuning peg, and the price tag read $450. Katrina rushed to the owner and pointed to the window. That violin was stolen. That's what they all say, the man behind the counter said, not looking up from his computer. It's a bit loved, but it's a good violin. $450. Before Katrina could reply, Lan cleared her throat. It's damaged. Lower the price, Lan said commandingly. Shizuka was startled. So that was what a starship captain sounded like. The owner blinked. Maybe I can do $425, but that's it. I believe the instrument was made in Germany. You believe wrong, Lan said. $200 cash. It cost me at least $200 to repair, and that's still fair profit for you. $300. $200 and a good Yelp review. She did not have to add that she could also write a bad one. Make it a good review, he finally said. Lan reached for her purse, but Shizuka held her arm and put her finger to her lips. I don't think you understood what this girl said, Shizuka said innocently. This violin was stolen. Of course she did. People say that all the... The pawnshop owner looked at Shizuka and stopped cold. Now it was Lan's turn to be startled. The pawnshop owner was terrified. Surely you're not implying that she would lie to you, Shizuka said sweetly. Of course not. The girl should have her violin back. Yes, of course, he stammered. And her case. Yeah, sure, case 2. Katrina and Lan watched wordlessly as Shizuka inspected the violin. A peg is missing. Strings are missing. The bridge. What happened? Was it you? Shizuka glared at the owner. I can find out, you know. No, I didn't do anything. I swear it was like that when I got it. He was near hysterics. He pulled out a roll of cash and peeled off some bills. This should pay for the damages. Please, just take it. Thank you, she said politely, and I shall. Once outside, Shizuka placed the violin gently in Katrina's arms. We're lucky that he was so nice, she said nonchalantly. My other violin was smashed, but this one will be okay. What was the girl talking about? Katrina? My other violin was smashed, but this one will be okay, she repeated. She held her violin case tightly to herself. Katri. Shizuka felt a hand on her back. She turned and saw Lan shake her head gently. Lan pulled out a small device that was shaped like a soy sauce bottle. Please hold her still, Lan said. Lan waved the device in front of Katrina's eyes. Almost instantly, her eyelids fluttered, then closed. Shizuka braced to bear her weight, but the girl remained standing. The effect is a bit like sleepwalking, Lan explained. She looked at her scanner and frowned. How she stayed conscious until now, I don't know. The poor thing is exhausted. She's not been eating well either. Her bruises are healing, but that rib has been fractured and re-injured. It's not life-threatening, but it must really hurt. Should we take her to the doctor? Shizuka asked. No, I can repair everything here, Lan said. I'm no doctor, but I'm trained in basic field medicine. Gradually, methodically, Lan moved the device over Katrina's face, her throat, and then over her rib. It seemed like the pawnshop owner recognized you, Lan said as she worked. Shizuka shrugged. People like that usually know how to avoid trouble. And anyway, you were pretty intimidating yourself. Even in the dark, Shizuka could sense Lan's blush. The donut shop, Lan finally said. Katrina. If she needs a job, I can give her one at the donut shop. Thank you, but she'll need to be careful with her hands. Katrina murmured, but this time it was almost like a purr. She'll be fine, Lan finally said. Let's get her in the car before she really falls asleep. Shizuka stopped at the traffic light, then looked in the rearview mirror. The girl seemed almost peaceful in the streetlights. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Excuse me, I need to make a call to Astrid. Astrid? Lan tried not to listen to their conversation, but it sounded like they knew each other very well. Well, of course they did. They were living together. This Astrid was even cooking her dinner. Shizuka put her phone away. I'm sorry for that. No, no problem at all. Lan tried to smile. So that was Shizuka's mate. Is everything all right? You got quiet all of a sudden. Oh, no, I'm just a little tired, that's all. Lan was quiet for the rest of the drive. Finally, Shizuka parked at the big donut. Shall I walk you inside? No, you should get this one to bed, and Astrid probably misses you. Astrid? My housekeeper. Housekeeper? Yes, she's been with me since I left Berlin. Oh, good. I mean... Have a good night, Lan, Shizuka said. You too, Shizuka, Lan managed to say. Lan walked into the shop. Shirley rushed over, concerned. Mother, you said there was an emergency. Is everything all right? Lan smiled. Yes, everything is fine. And she has a housekeeper. Astrid was waiting as Shizuka pulled into the driveway. The poor thing is shivering, Astrid said. Come on, dear, let's get you inside. I need to get rosin, Katrina mumbled. Astrid grabbed Katrina's bags and led her inside. I already have her room ready. Shall I take her upstairs? Yes, please. I need to get rosin. Of course, dear. Let's get the rosin. Shizuka watched Astrid guide Katrina inside. To think she had been homeless, lugging her bags, staying God knows where with a fractured rib. To think she had been in the park playing the Shrydick as if she were lighter and clearer than air. Shizuka waved to Mrs. Liu, who went into the house. Astrid came downstairs not long after. Fast asleep, she said. Shall I bring you something to eat? Thank you, but no, I'll be practicing, Shizuka said. Practicing? Yes, I need to prepare for the new student after all. Of course, Miss Satomi. A few minutes later, Astrid heard a most wonderful music rising from below. Due to her deal with Hell, all traces of Miss Satomi's performances had been erased, and she was forbidden to perform. But since her job was to teach, she had to maintain her skills. Thus, in the privacy of her practice hall, she could play as much as she desired. This meant that, other than Miss Satomi's chosen students, Astrid was the only person in the world who was able to hear Shizuka Satomi play. Which of course was more than privilege enough. But tonight, Miss Satomi's violin sounded different. Astrid closed her eyes. Her playing was every bit as rich and nuanced as all the years had made her. Still, something about Miss Satomi's music seemed almost as if it were waking, returning. Astrid recalled Grandma Strafeldus, her treasured tulips coming back to life after the long Swiss winter. New leaves, supple and pointing, like the fingers of small children to the sky. Chapter 8. What? Katrina sat up. Quickly, she checked herself. No new scrapes or bruises. She was wearing a nightshirt, but it wasn't ripped. She'd not been choked. In fact, her body seemed fine. Violin. She panicked before she felt the case next to her. She opened it carefully. The strings were still loose. A peg was still missing. The bridge was still glued to the face. Her heart sank. That part had still been a dream. Still, Here she was, and her violin was with her. But where was she? There was a knock on her bedroom door. Yes? Miss Katrina, I heard you stir. Are you awake? Said a proper yet caring voice. Somehow the voice made her feel safe. She cracked the door open. Hello? Good morning. I'm Astrid, Miss Satomi's housekeeper. Did you sleep well? Katrina nodded. Last night you were exhausted, so we let you sleep, but you'll feel better after you take a bath. Come? Katrina followed Astrid down the hall. Astrid handed her a towel and a washcloth. Miss Katrina, please use the shower first, then soak in the bath. It's already filled. Astrid bowed slightly before closing the door. Katrina started to undress. Suddenly, the door reopened. Yes? Leave the nightshirt here to be washed. Your clothes are almost dry. I'll leave them on your bed. Oh, okay. The bath was not the bathtub she had at home. It was rectangular and came about waist high, and a gentle steam floated from the surface. A sturdy wooden step stool allowed her to ease herself inside. She closed her eyes and stepped in, and almost screamed. Hot, hot, hot! Katrina quickly withdrew her foot, which was now flushed and red. Holy fuck! The bathtub from hell! Seriously, who took a bath in water this hot? She added cold water until the temperature was bearable. Finally, she eased herself in. Katrina couldn't remember the last time she had taken a full bath. Katrina usually rushed her showers. Being naked, even with herself, made her uncomfortable. But here, submerged to her neck in the still, steaming water, Katrina felt almost weightless. When was the last time she felt that? She thought she heard something in the hallway. She tried to get up, but slipped back. Immediately she cringed, expecting something in her body to hurt. But there was nothing. Nothing outside, and nothing within. No pain, just calm, quiet. Katrina had thought she'd rush her bath, like she always did, but maybe she could stay in just a little while longer. She didn't know how long she had been in the bath, but eventually the water cooled enough that she shivered. She stepped out of the tub, dried herself with a big, fluffy towel, and looked for her clothes. Where? Astrid said they would be on her bed. Katrina hastily wrapped herself in her towel. Wait, she had woken in a nightshirt. That meant the last night either she or Shizuka must have undressed her. They must have seen... But Astrid had made no mention of this. Thank goodness for small miracles. Katrina tried not to laugh at her own joke, but now she was naked. And even if she covered her body with wet hair and no makeup, there was nothing to keep her face from looking like a boy's. She had to be careful. Katrina wrapped the towel around her and stepped outside quietly. Yet as the door closed behind her, she realized she had no idea of the way back to her room. Are you lost, Miss Katrina? Came a voice from behind her. Ah! There was no way that Astrid could see her like this. Not now. Katrina turned around slowly, then braced herself for the worst. Please don't scream. Please don't call the police. Oh, I should have brought your robe. I'm sorry, Astrid said. What? Your room is the other way, at the end of the hall. Come down for breakfast in half an hour. Katrina nodded numbly. You have a big day today. Miss Satomi says she's taking you to repair your violin. Half in a daze, Katrina walked into the bedroom. It smelled of old wood, incense, and camphor, like it had been still for a very long time. Stillness was good. Stillness meant no sudden movements, no one rushing to kick in her door. And there on her bed were her clothes. All of them, not just the clothes she had been wearing, but the clothes in her bag. Everything had been washed and neatly folded. Everything. She tried not to think about a stranger handling her work outfits and dirty underwear. Instead, she tried to focus on where she was. Beside the bed, there was a dresser, a closet, a vanity, a full-length mirror. Quietly, she dried herself, then put on a newish pair of cotton pants and a top that reasonably matched. She retrieved her makeup and hairbrush from her bag and sat at the vanity. She looked into the mirror and touched her face. Her black eye was gone. And wait, it wasn't just warmth of the bath. Her rib was fine. This seemed like a dream, but her forehead was still too heavy, her jaw still too wide, and she had the same ugly, oversized hands. Well, whether she was dreaming or not, reality was reality. Katrina smoothed moisturizer on her face, then found her razor. She pulled her skin taut and shaved her facial hair as closely as she could. Once her makeup was done, she checked herself one last time in the full-length mirror. Then Katrina took a deep breath, opened the door, and walked downstairs. The walls were covered in dark wood paneling, and the floor was carpeted in beige. The lamps were large ceramic decorative things that used incandescent bulbs. Everything was dusted, polished, but everything seemed to be sleeping. The drapes, the curtains, the furniture. Katrina gripped her smartphone to remind herself what year this was. "Miss Katrina, all clean, are we?" said Astrid. "Wonderful. Please sit. Would you like some tea? Earl Grey?" "Huh? Oh, yes. Miss Hitomi will be down soon. I think you'll enjoy this. It's the most wonderful Earl Grey." Thank you." Katrina smiled, or she hoped she smiled. Did she smile? Speaking to an older person, let alone an older person who was serving her, made Katrina uneasy, so she looked away and up at the wall. Her eyes were drawn to a black and white photograph of a woman. No, a girl. "The Paganini competition," Astrid said proudly. "Miss Hitomi's first major win. The picture next to it is from Warsaw, where she broke strings on 2 instruments and finally finished the concerto with a viola. Amazing." Immediately she felt foolish at the sound of her voice. Who was she to speak of Paganini? Warsaw? She didn't even know what a Paganini was. Instinctively, she looked toward the door. "Miss Katrina?" "Yes?" "When you think of love, is it somewhere the colors are brighter and everything seems to glow?" Astrid said casually. "With no pain, like your heart is skipping and doing cartwheels?" Katrina looked down. "No, ma'am." As if someone like her could have a good life like that. "Good." "Miss Astrid?" "Good, because love is so much more than that, isn't it?" Katrina nodded. That much, at least, she knew. "And so is the way Shizuka Satomi played. Now sip your tea, dear, before it gets cold." "Yes, ma'am." Miss Astrid smiled, and so did she. As she sipped, Katrina looked at more pictures, and then records, news articles. Shizuka Satomi. She was more than a teacher. Far more. "Miss Astrid, shouldn't there be more about her online? At least a few recordings?" Astrid tilted her head and gave an expression Katrina could not read. "I believe that she'll explain it to you herself." "Music industry stuff?" Katrina ventured. "Yes, you might say that." Astrid smiled as if Katrina had made some very clever joke. But before Katrina could respond, there came a voice from above. "What is this about the music industry?" The entire room seemed to stop and stand at attention. "Miss Katrina noticed your lack of available recordings," Astrid explained. "Ah, well, we can talk about that later." "But Miss Hitomi, it just seems so unfair. What gives them the right?" Astrid raised her hand. "I'm sorry," Katrina said automatically. "No, don't apologize. In fact, thank you." Shizuka sat at the table, then looked at Katrina carefully. "However, my music career is not the focus. What we must really concern ourselves with is yours." Chapter 9. Katrina, have some muesli. Muesli? I soaked it in yogurt overnight and added tangerine slices, and here's some fresh tangerine juice. Shizuka smiled at the thought of Astrid triumphantly using the last of the Aguilar tangerines. And even more importantly, the seventh student, the one she had been seeking for nearly a decade, was sitting right in front of her, having breakfast at her table. Yogurt? In cereal? Katrina dipped her spoon into the muesli. She had never heard of such a thing. It just looked like soggy oatmeal, but it was sweet, tart, nutty, with just a little chewy crunch, and the tangerine slices were like bits of sunshine. It was almost too good to be true. Katrina paused. "What's wrong, honey? Do you not like it?" Astrid asked anxiously. "If you have any favorite foods from home, perhaps I can learn to make them." Katrina shook her head. Her mother had always made what her father wanted. There was nothing there that she wanted to recall. Besides, the muesli was wonderful. Miss Astrid had been wonderful. Miss Satomi had been beyond wonderful. But people like this weren't supposed to be wonderful. Not to people like her. "Why are you being so nice to me?" "Why? Because you are Miss Satomi's student." Astrid glanced at Shizuka, then back at the girl. "And she's been searching a very long time for you." Shizuka watched her new student try to relax and fail. Of course she would be suspicious. Tremont would be suspicious. Even Astrid was having her doubts. After all, Katrina Nguyen was most definitely not someone that Hell would have chosen. Yes, Hell accepted that it could neither create talent nor control where it landed. Paganini had all the tools for immortality before he signed over his soul, as did Tartini or anyone else who claimed the devil came and made them great. But Hell favored people who recognized their brilliance, who believed they deserved success, would have success, were it not for a flaw, a disadvantage that they could never overcome. Paganini didn't sell his soul to become Paganini. He sold his soul because he thought his appearance so hideous that no one would love him otherwise. Each of Shizuka's 6 previous students had a familiar or a similar fear that their talent, their destiny, would be thwarted. Morihei thought he'd never be accepted because he was Japanese. Lilia thought her commoner's blood tainted her playing. Sabrina was worried because she was fat, and so on and so on. What made each of them right for Hell was their need for a lie, a facade so powerful, so intoxicating that they could believe it themselves. And those Hell could easily provide. But this one didn't seem ready for such a lie. At present, she could barely handle her truth. Well, there would be time to address this later. For now, ready or not, they had work to do. Shizuka nodded to herself and put her coffee cup down. As the cup clattered on the table, Katrina flinched. Tangerine juice splashed all over them. "I'm sorry." Katrina leapt to her feet. Shizuka watched the girl frantically scan the room for the front door. She was terrified. "I'll clean it up," Astrid said calmly. "Please, Mr. Katrina, sit down. There's no problem at all." "I'm sorry," she repeated. Of course, the black eye, the bruises, the fractured rib. These were simple wounds. What remained would be far more difficult to heal. Inside, Shizuka was furious. How dare someone interrupt talent like this? Rests, pauses, delayed resolutions. These were to be expected in any music, but this was needless. This was time wasted, time which Shizuka did not have. However, being injured wasn't the girl's fault, and showing frustration would only make matters worse. "Katrina?" The voice was gentle. Cautiously, Katrina looked to its source. "Yes?" "After breakfast, we shall take your violin to the shop." "I don't have money," she said honestly. The last guide barely paid. "Don't worry about that now. Just Finish your breakfast. Astrid put her hands on Katrina's shoulders. Katrina tried not to flinch. You have a lot to do today, and when you return, we'll have more tangerine juice. Plenty more. Shizuka glanced upward. Astrid shrugged. This morning, Mrs. Aguilar brought another bag. South Arroyo was a quaint and picturesque hamlet at the end of the Long Beach Freeway. South Arroyo sat at the end of said freeway because its residents had blocked further construction, declaring their town too quaint and picturesque for freeways. The residents had also objected when the city wanted to run a light rail through their town, until they realized they could build a quaint and picturesque plaza by the station, complete with quaint and picturesque health food stores, gastropubs, and boutiques hawking fair trade clothing woven from all natural fibers. As their surroundings became ever more quaint and picturesque, Katrina grew nervous. She did not belong here. She did not belong here. She did not belong here. Moreover, did Miss Atomi and Miss Astrid even know she was transgender? Of course they must. Miss Astrid had basically seen her naked, but there had been no mention of her gender whatsoever. From the way she acted, Katrina could almost believe they accepted who she was. But that was in their home, behind closed doors. Now they were in public. She and Miss Atomi had pulled into the parking lot of what looked like an especially quaint and picturesque music store. And in that store, someone would point at the weird tranny and maybe even call her a boy. Miss Atomi? Yes? We can't go in there. Shizuka frowned. What was the matter now? Helvar Grunfeld's fine violin shop did look a little too much like it had been painted by Thomas Kincaid, but the shop did reasonably good work and would be able to repair Katrina's student violin easily. Katrina? I'm not what you think I am. Shizuka was thoroughly puzzled. The girl seemed honest, and not many entities could deceive her. Was she working with Tremont Philippe? No? Tremont had no reason to deceive her this way. There was a far simpler explanation, wasn't there? Why did she not want to go into Grunfeld's? Of course, she was most likely nervous that she would be seen, perhaps by someone she knew. And since this was Grunfeld's, that person was probably either her old teacher or another student. Fair enough. It was not good form to take a student from an existing teacher, but Shizuka was sure she could work everything out. She was Shizuka Satomi, after all. Okay, then. Who is your teacher, really? Teacher? What was Miss Satomi talking about? No one. I mean, I watch YouTube and I have old books. Old books are good. Then what do you mean about you not really being who I think you are? I'm trans. There, she said it. What? Transgender. Miss Satomi paused. Yes, of course, but if you're really someone else's student... No. Good. It's not a deal breaker, but I'd rather not take you from another instructor without their permission. The ensuing drama can be troublesome, even for me. Miss Satomi, I said I'm transgender. Oh, so that was the issue. Shizuka could feel the terror in the girl's voice. Her hand was already gripping the door handle. This would not do. Shizuka brought the car to a stop, shut off the engine, then looked at her student with her full attention. Transgender. Yes, Katrina, I heard you the first time. Shall we fix your violin? Yes, please. Katrina managed to say. Good. And Katrina, no jumping out of moving cars. It causes a mess. Yes, Miss Satomi. Miss Satomi pressed the buzzer to be let inside. Katrina bit her lip as she walked through the curly maple doorway into the polished spruce floors. Grunfeld smelled as if someone had blended the scent of old wood and rosin and tastefully atomized it throughout the store. Interesting historical instruments hung from the walls. In the corner, a young woman meticulously dusted a row of violas. Down the hallway, Katrina could hear a cello. A small part of Katrina wanted to hear every instrument in the store, but much more of her was screaming, "Get out! You don't belong here!" These people weren't like her. They had formal lessons. They grew up listening to Mozart and practicing scales, and their parents could probably read music too. Katrina became painfully aware of the sound of her shoes on the hardwood floor. People like this would laugh at her because she grew up east of Oakland. Oh, by the way, she was transgender. Now a woman was staring. In fact, everyone was staring. But they weren't staring at her. They were all focused on Miss Atomi. Soon an old man scurried out from the back. "Hello, Helvar." "Shizuka Satomi, it's been a long time. Not that time seems to have done anything to you." He winked. It reminded Katrina of the wink she had seen so often from married men in drag bars. "Well, what do you have there?" "I have a new student, and this is her violin." Every eye in the store shifted to her. Katrina gave Helvar Grunfeld her case. He smiled, but just beneath, Katrina could sense disgust. I'm so—" She started to flail, but her teacher cut her off. "She'd like it repaired, then properly set up, and maybe we can make the fingerboard a bit more responsive." The old man frowned. He motioned to another technician, who bit his lip and shrugged. "Shizuka," the old man said, "come back to the workshop and let's see what we can do." "Of course. Katrina, why not look at the sheet music and see if there's anything here you'd like to play?" Once out of earshot, Halvar opened the case and stared. "Shizuka, how do I put this? This is some sort of joke?" I was surprised as well, but my student loves it, and it has quite a good sound. I'm sure it does." He nodded back at Katrina. "But if he is really your student, we can give him a good price on a proper instrument. His parents can pay in installments if they can't afford the full price up front." "Her parents aren't helping her, so sorry to say," Shizuka said. "But then, what do you expect me—" "But I am, and I expect you to examine my student's instrument and provide me an estimate." Halvar looked at his technician, who looked at the floor. Then he turned to Shizuka. "I'm sorry, Miss Atomi, but I don't work on this oriental junk." Shizuka peered at him over her sunglasses. "Oriental junk." "Shizuka, please." "Goodbye, Halvar. The world is changing, you know. A pity you aren't already living in it." She took the violin and walked out of the store. "Come, Katrina, let's have brunch." Most likely by coincidence, it was half an hour later when Helvar Grunfeld's heart decided to stop. "Wait for it." Shizuka held her hands to her ears. Katrina looked at her puzzled before she heard the noise of an oncoming siren. "As you were saying," Shizuka asked once the ambulance had passed. "I'm sorry for embarrassing you," she repeated. "Sorry? Why? That was a violin shop. This is a violin." "Miss Atomi, I don't want to doubt you. But did you see that place?" Shizuka nibbled on her quaint and picturesque crepe. Apparently this cafe was new, for the rustic courtyard furniture and French language sign still had price tags from Home Depot and Cost Plus World Market. "Grunfeld's? That's actually Helvar Jr. At least, that was. His father started the shop. He had never gone bald." Miss Atomi could not have said that, could she? "Wasn't his head shiny?" Miss Atomi continued. Katrina knew she shouldn't, but she giggled, then started laughing. First from the chest, then from the dark of her belly. It was so mean. He couldn't help losing his hair, but she didn't want to apologize. How long had it been since she'd been able to laugh? Like a brand new cake of rosin. Oh, you know, the kind the hair has never touched, she said. Good one, good one. And now Miss Satomi was laughing too. But Miss Satomi, my violin is not the sort that they normally repair, Katrina finally was able to say. Shizuka rolled her eyes. But Katrina was right. In part, this was Shizuka's fault. She had brought what she thought was a normal violin to a normal violin shop. But this violin was not normal, was it? Finish your crepe and let's go. Where are we going? Asked Katrina. Somewhere not normal, Shizuka replied. Chapter 10. Matya and Sons, Fine Woodworking and Violins. The shop was located next to the railroad tracks across from Sanchez Liquor, which was now Chun-Li's driving school. It had never expanded, never advertised. It had never needed to. To Lucy, Matya, coming to work every morning was like stepping into church. A portrait of her grandfather, Catalin Matya, proudly watched over the workshop. Throughout the store, other images were displayed. Catalin was a young corporal in Italy, and there, on a bicycle in front of the Battistero di Cremona, with violinist Primrose, young and still able to hear, and there in Montbavon, enjoying Gruyere and Gruyères with the teenage Shizuka Satomi. The newer photographs were of Catalin's son, Franco, Lucia's father, a bit rougher and coarser, but still a Matya. There he was in Prague with Sabrina Eisen, in Latvia with Kremer, and there with Yifeng Brian Zhang, as beautiful and tortured as ever. But now, no new pictures were being added to the wall. There were no impromptu visitations, no passionate lunchtime conversations about Viam. Instead, a local musician might need peg dope, a community orchestra might order sheet music, and of course, many customers spoke Spanish and could not go to a place like Grunfeld's. Very occasionally, someone might hear about this shop from an old professor or senior colleague. They would come in, look around, ask a few questions, but once they realized that neither Catalin nor Franco Mattia were still alive, their expressions would change, and they would quickly leave. She didn't blame them. Who was she, anyway? Suddenly, the old brass bell jingled. Lucy stepped backward and almost bumped into a cello. Mom, you okay? Yes, I just got a little startled, that's all. I brought you lunch, her son said. Lunch? It's lunchtime already? She opened the paper bag. You know, this stuff will kill you. I hear that Calderos is a veggie burrito with kale in it, Andrew quickly offered. Lucy watched her son fidget nervously. He really did not like being in the shop, did he? No, I'm just kidding. It's a joke your grandfather used to say. Lucy held the greasy burrito in her hands. Carne asada, all meat. It was still warm, wrapped in white paper, then in the yellow paper with 2 napkins in a brown paper bag. She had brought this exact lunch to her father and grandfather before. This lunch had always made them smile. The next master should be smiling too. But she was no master. She thought of all the evenings that she'd been asked to leave the shop, evenings her brothers had been asked to stay behind, to learn secrets passed only from their father to son. But now Lucy's younger brother was in jail, and her older brother had fled the violin shop as soon as her father fell ill, saying the old man deserved to burn. Lucy glanced beyond the burrito to the disheveled violin before her. Mr. Zaccaquetas said he dropped it while playing at a wedding. He said it was an accident. An accident? The poor thing was still damp with beer. A life of increasing neglect had steadily degraded the instrument, causing parts to warp and misalign. Soon it would be beyond saving. Just keep it together, he had said. Keep it together. Andrew, if you have time, why not stay after lunch? It's been a while since you spent any time in the shop. We still have 2 weeks before Mr. Zaketas returns. It's very basic work. She tried not to sound nervous. What if I mess it up? You won't. You're Matya. At the sound of the name, his face turned red. I can't, he mumbled. Then he dashed out of the store. He'll come around, Lucy told herself. He had to. Somehow he'd find a way to continue the store. Maybe he could coax his uncles back when the store was properly his. Or maybe he'd be a genius who could rediscover the family secrets himself. For a son of the Matyas, all things were possible. Until then, just keep it together. Lucy took a deep breath and loosened the strings on the tired violin. For now, keeping it together was in her hands, her woman's hands. Yet how could the hands of a daughter possibly preserve the legacy of this family, this name? The doorbell jingled again. Did you forget your phone, Andrew? I told you not to. She froze mid-sentence. This was not Andrew at all. Exquisite, fiery, sunglasses, footsteps in perfect time. Is Franco here? Franco? Oh, I'm sorry. He passed away 12 years ago. What? 12 years? Has it been 12 years? Lucy felt this woman trying to place her. I'm Lucy, she finally offered. Lucia? You're all grown up. I'm Shizuka Satomi. Of course she was. A photo of her was over her head. It had been Caitlin's favorite. But a photo was nothing compared to reality. Lucy had to suppress an urge to bow. With casual elegance, Shizuka turned to Katrina. This is Lucia Matya. Lucia has been in this shop since she was a child. Katrina bowed and tried to make herself small. Lucia, I remember watching you change the bridge on Aoi Miyazawa's strand, remember? The one she got from that billionaire German. You couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. Lucy looked at her feet. I was 10. And Miss Miyazawa wasn't supposed to know that, she muttered. Not only did she know it, she performed with it that night. Shizuka laughed. Even then you had the hands of a Matya, and now you're finally the master. Lucy winced. Sure, she had decent hands. Her grandfather had said so himself, but a master? Look, I'd love to, but I don't have the qualifications. Ever since my father died, I've just been doing simple work here and there. Nothing complicated, just basic repairs and setups. Maybe you can find another shop? At least that was what Lucy Matya had intended to say. But Shizuka Satomi had already placed a violin case in front of her. Then she pointed at the boy next to her. This is my student, and we need your help. Lucy tried to remain calm, but this was Shizuka Satomi. As a performer, she was said to have never lost a contest. As a teacher? From Morihei Sanada to Yifeng Zhang and everyone in between, Burke, Torsheva, Eisen, Choi, the queen of hell had taught them all. So despite herself, Lucy placed her curious hands upon the case. Her heart raced as she imagined the magnificent instrument inside. I don't understand. She bought this from eBay, Shizuka said casually. It's from China. Is there anything wrong? Are you serious? Lucy stuttered. I mean, we have some very good rental instruments that he'd be welcome to try. I mean, not like anything you have, but... Huh? My student is a girl. Oh, whatever. Well, her name is not whatever. Her name is Katrina, Shizuka said sweetly. Yes, of course, it was not whatever, it's just... She stopped herself before she said worse. I'm sorry. Not to me. Shizuka Satomi gestured to her student. I'm so sorry, Lucy said to Katrina. Katrina looked down, trying to make herself disappear. Lucy's heart sank. Watching this child made Lucy think of all the times her father had lost his temper. And that is where we're going to stop this week. I will try not to hit mute next time. Thank you all so much for coming.